A stranger in the lobby. The city of Aspen had always carried a certain kind of magic. Nestled among the towering Colorado mountains, the town was known for its luxurious ski resorts, boutique hotels, and celebrity sightings during winter. But on a quiet spring evening, the magic came in a more subtle form, one that no one in the Ridgeway Grand Hotel would ever forget. The sun had just begun to set, casting golden-orange hues across the sky. The Ridgeway Grand Hotel stood like a monument to timeless elegance. Gleaming marble floors, glistening chandeliers, and a symphony of polished heels clicking across its wide lobby. Guests arrived with designer luggage. Bellboys bustled back and forth, and a light classical melody played through the lobby's hidden speakers. Among all this luxury, one man quietly stepped through the front revolving doors. He wore a plain black hoodie, faded jeans, and worn sneakers. A small duffel bag hung over his shoulder, the strap frayed slightly at the edges. His salt and pepper hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, and a few strands framed his face. He looked like any other traveler, tired from a long journey, and hoping for a warm meal and a soft bed. No one turned to look at him. No one whispered or pointed. And that was exactly how Keanu Reeves liked it. It had been a long day. He had flown in under an alias, skipping the usual high-profile entrances and choosing to travel like a regular person. He didn't have an entourage, didn't call ahead for VIP service. For Keanu, normalcy was a luxury. As he made his way to the front desk, he passed by a young couple arguing over dinner reservations, a group of influencers filming a vlog, and a businesswoman barking orders on her Bluetooth headset. He smiled softly as he glanced around. The world moved fast in places like these, but he had come here for something slower, something different. Behind the polished marble reception desk sat Emma, a 26-year-old receptionist with dreams of becoming a writer. Her job, however, was far from the romantic adventures she imagined. Most days were filled with managing difficult guests, chasing down housekeeping errors, and watching people flaunt wealth she couldn't dream of having. Emma glanced up as Keanu approached, but her eyes quickly moved back to her screen. "Checking in?" she asked, her voice clipped and efficient. Keanu nodded, resting his hands on the counter. "Yes, I have a reservation. What's the name?" "KR." She paused, eyebrows slightly raised, then turned back to the computer. "KR? Is that a company name, or?" "It's just what I used for the booking," he said with a slight smile. Emma blinked, her fingers clicking across the keyboard. "Uh-huh," she murmured skeptically. "Just a moment." Keanu waited patiently, glancing around the lobby. No one recognized him. He wasn't hiding. He simply wasn't expected. After a moment, Emma frowned. "I'm not seeing any reservation under KR. Are you sure you didn't book under a different name, or maybe at another location?" "I'm pretty sure it's this one," he said gently. "Maybe it was under Reeves?" Emma typed again. She paused. Her eyes narrowed at the screen, then darted up to him. "Wait, Reeves?" she asked, her voice now laced with the faintest note of suspicion. "As in, Keanu Reeves." He smiled politely but said nothing. Emma chuckled dryly, assuming it was a joke. "Right, and I'm Scarlett Johansson." Just then, her colleague, Carlos, came from the back office carrying a folder. He paused mid-step, his eyes locked on Keanu. His expression shifted. "Emma," he whispered, walking over. "Do you know who that is?" Emma looked puzzled. "Some guy who thinks he's Keanu Reeves." Carlos leaned in. "No, that is Keanu Reeves." Emma blinked. She turned back to the man standing calmly in front of her. She studied his face now, really studied it. The humble clothes had distracted her, but now, the cheekbones, the kindness in the eyes, the calm posture, it all clicked. "Oh my God," she murmured, standing straighter. Keanu smiled and shrugged. "No worries. It happens." Emma's face flushed. "I am so sorry, Mr. Reeves. I didn't recognize you." we weren't expecting. It's okay, he said quickly, putting her at ease. Really, I like it better this way. Carlos stepped in. We have a presidential suite on the top floor that's currently unbooked. I can have housekeeping prepare it immediately. Keanu raised a hand. No need for all that. Just the standard room I booked, please. Emma looked at Carlos in disbelief. We can't. I mean, Mr. Reeves, this hotel has hosted celebrities before, but none as. I'd rather keep things simple, Keanu said kindly. Besides, I'm not here for press. Just passing through. Reluctantly, they agreed, and Carlos arranged for a bellboy to escort him upstairs. But whispers began to spread. By dinner time, the entire hotel staff knew. Keanu Reeves is staying here. Some guests caught wind too. A few tried to sneak glances. Some even attempted to follow him into the restaurant or gym. But Keanu, ever gracious, kept to himself and treated everyone with warmth and humility. No arrogance, no demands, just quiet kindness. But what happened next would not just be a celebrity sighting story. It would become a tale that every staff member at the Ridgeway Grand would carry with them for the rest of their lives. It started with a knock on the maintenance room door. The knock no one expected. The knock came softly. 3 gentle raps on the old maintenance room door in the hotel's back corridor. Most of the guests never even saw this hallway. It was the hidden artery of the hotel, where staff moved behind the scenes like clockwork, fixing what was broken and preparing what was unseen. Marcus, the hotel's senior maintenance man, rubbed his aching knees as he stood up from under the water heater. The man was pushing 65, with silver hair and hands like old leather. He had been with the Ridgeway Grand for 27 years, longer than any of the polished managers upstairs. He didn't smile much, but he knew every screw and wire in that building better than anyone alive. He grunted, wiped his hands on a rag, and opened the door. There, standing like some misplaced traveler in a service corridor, was Keanu Reeves. Marcus squinted. You lost, pal. Keanu smiled sheepishly. Sort of. I was wondering if you had a moment. Marcus raised a brow. For what? Just wanted to ask if you needed a hand with anything. Marcus blinked, genuinely confused. A hand? With what? Pipes. Keanu shrugged. Anything, really. Marcus looked him up and down, unsure whether this was a prank or some kind of test set up by management. You're Keanu Reeves. The Keanu Reeves. And you're offering to help. Me? I like fixing things, Keanu replied, glancing toward the tools in the room. It's calming. Marcus chuckled dryly. You know how many guests complain if the thermostat's off by 1 degree. You know how many people ever ask to help. Keanu leaned against the doorframe. I spent most of my life on film sets pretending to fix motorcycles, ride horses, shoot guns, fix spaceships. I figured it might be time to do something real. That made Marcus pause. There was something unshakably authentic about the man. Not just the words, but the way he said them. There was no ego, no false humility. Just truth. Well, Marcus muttered, stepping aside, if you want to spend your vacation sweating under a boiler with a guy who smells like grease and old coffee, be my guest. Keanu smiled, stepped in, and rolled up his sleeves. Back in the lobby, word of Keanu's humility was spreading like wildfire among the hotel staff. Emma, still flushed with embarrassment from mistaking him earlier, couldn't stop thinking about the gentle way he had handled the situation. Most guests would have demanded special treatment, or worse, demanded her job. But he hadn't even blinked. Instead, he thanked her. At the break room, Carlos was retelling the story of Keanu turning down the presidential suite for a regular king room, like it was a myth. Dude sleeping on a bed that still has a creaky headboard, he laughed, sipping his coffee. We offered him memory foam pillows and a fireplace. You know what he asked for? A reading lamp. Maybe he's researching a role, Emma offered. Carlos shook his head. Nah, you can't fake kindness like that. Just then, the assistant manager Brenda entered the room, holding her phone. "You guys might want to see this," she said, turning the screen toward them. It was security footage. Grainy, but clear. There was Keanu in the service hallway, holding a wrench, kneeling next to Marcus under a panel. Helping. Laughing even. Carlos' jaw dropped. "No way." Emma stared. "He's actually doing maintenance work." Brenda nodded. "He's been with Marcus for over an hour." Back in the maintenance room. "You ever fix a boiler before?" Marcus grunted, handing Keanu a rusted old wrench. "Not professionally," Keanu replied. "But I once rebuilt the carburetor on my Norton motorcycle in a parking lot in Berlin." Marcus snorted. "That'll do." They worked in silence for a while. The kind of silence that builds respect. Keanu didn't ask for praise. He didn't check his phone. He didn't flinch at the grime or the heat. When a pipe burst suddenly and soaked his jeans, he just laughed. "You know," Marcus said, glancing sideways, "you could have been up in a penthouse sipping champagne. Why are you really down here?" Keanu paused. Then softly he answered, "Because I needed to be around people who still believe in work, real work, honest hands. I've been tired of pretending." Marcus didn't press, but he nodded slowly. "You're all right, Reeves." Keanu smiled. "So are you." That night, the hotel was quieter than usual. A light rain tapped gently on the windows as staff began to clock out. Most went home to families, roommates, or quiet apartments. Emma stayed behind a little longer, sipping chamomile tea in the lounge, thinking. Suddenly, a voice spoke beside her. "Mind if I join you?" She turned, and there he was, KeanuReeves, holding a cup of black coffee, looking like any other guest, but carrying a calm energy that made everything else feel smaller. Emma straightened. "Of course. I mean, sure, yes." He sat down across from her, carefully, as if afraid of disturbing the air. "I wanted to thank you," he said, "for how you handled everything earlier." Emma blinked. "Thank me? Mr. Reeves, I didn't even recognize you." "I was rude. Dismissive." "You were doing your job," he interrupted gently. "And you treated me like a person, not a celebrity. That means more to me than you realize." Emma swallowed hard. It's not every day someone famous wants to be treated like everyone else. "I'm not interested in being worshipped," he said. "I'm interested in being real." There was a long pause. Rain continued to fall. Somewhere in the background, a piano played a soft jazz tune. Emma finally asked, "So what brought you here?" "Really?" Keanu stared into his cup for a moment. "An old friend of mine used to stay at this hotel. He passed away a few months ago. We were supposed to take this trip together. I decided to come alone. To remember." Emma felt her chest tighten. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Keanu nodded slowly. "Loss has a way of showing you what matters." Another pause. But this one was peaceful. Then he stood, finishing his coffee. "Thanks for the tea," he said with a small smile. Emma nodded. "Thank you for being human." He left with a nod and a small wave. But what none of them knew yet, not Emma, not Carlos, not Marcus, was that Keanu's visit to this hotel was only just beginning. What started as a quiet stay would soon turn into an event that would make international headlines, change lives, and remind the world why Keanu Reeves is more than just a name on a screen. He's a man who walks with empathy and acts with purpose. And the next morning, everything would change. The girl, the dog, and the unexpected hero. The next morning, the Ridgeway Grand Hotel was just beginning to stir. Room service carts rattled down long corridors. The scent of fresh-baked croissants and brewed coffee filled the air, and early-rising guests strolled through the lobby. Draped in plush robes and sleep-heavy expressions, Keanu Reeves was already up. He had spent the night in quiet reflection. The rain had stopped before dawn, but the skies remained a soft, cloud-covered gray. the kind of morning that made everything feel slower, more intimate. He liked that. The stillness, the honesty of it. He slipped on his hoodie and jeans again. Same clothes, same duffel bag, same quiet smile, and headed downstairs for a morning walk. No fanfare, no camera crew, just Keanu and the cobblestone paths winding behind the hotel gardens. But as he stepped outside, something caught his attention. A sharp cry, a sob, a small voice calling out, desperate and fragile. "Luna! Luna! Please come back." Keanu froze. To the left, near the hedge-lined pathway beside the reflecting pond, stood a little girl, no older than 7. Her jacket was zipped unevenly, and her cheeks were red from crying. She was alone, standing on her tiptoes, peering into the woods behind the property. Keanu approached gently, careful not to scare her. "Hey there," he said softly, kneeling to her eye level. "Are you okay?" The girl jumped slightly, then looked up. Her big brown eyes shimmered with tears. "My dog, Luna." She ran off when the man opened the delivery gate. "She's scared of loud trucks." She ran into the woods. Keanu's face grew serious. He glanced toward the dense line of trees. The hotel bordered a stretch of private forestland. Beautiful, but untamed. It would be easy for a small dog to get lost, or worse. "What's your name?" he asked kindly. "Ellie." "Well, Ellie, I'm Keanu. Would you like me to help find Luna?" The girl nodded vigorously, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. "Please, she's my best friend." Without hesitation, Keanu stood up and scanned the path. A nearby gardener approached, having overheard the last part. "We already checked near the garden and the gazebo," he said. She bolted through the side fence and toward the trailhead. "Maintenance says it leads deep into the woods." Keanu nodded. "Get security. Tell them we've got a missing dog. And bring some of her treats if possible. Anything with her scent." The gardener rushed off. Keanu turned back to Ellie. "You wait here with the nice lady from the front desk. I'll go look for her." Emma had just arrived and was already kneeling beside Ellie. Her eyes widened when she realized what Keanu was doing. "You're going into the woods alone," she whispered. Keanu smiled faintly. "I've done worse things before breakfast." 30 minutes later, the forest was damp from last night's rain. Leaves clung to his boots, and mist curled around the tree trunks like breath. The trail was uneven, broken by patches of mud and roots, but Keanu moved with quiet purpose. He called softly, "Luna, Luna girl, come on, sweet one." A bird flapped out of a nearby bush, making him flinch slightly. He kept going. After 10 minutes, he paused and knelt down. He pulled something from his jacket, a small dog treat one of the staff had handed him before he left. He broke it in half, placed it on a flat rock, and waited. Nothing. Then, a sound. A whimper. Soft, muffled. Keanu turned toward it, slowly approaching a thicket of tangled branches. And there she was, a small golden retriever puppy, no older than a year, trembling beneath a fallen log. Her leash had tangled around a root, pinning her in place. Her fur was wet and dirty, her eyes wide with fear. Keanu dropped to his knees. "Hey there, Luna," he whispered. "It's okay. I've got you." He moved slowly, showing her the treat, then gently untangled the leash. Luna flinched at first, but didn't growl. Something about his calm energy soothed her. "Good girl," he said, rubbing her ears. "Let's go see your human." With Luna safely cradled in his arms, Keanu stood and began the long walk back through the woods. His jeans were soaked. His shoes were caked in mud, but he didn't care. All he could think about was the look on that little girl's face when she saw her dog again. Back at the hotel, Ellie was pacing near the entrance with Emma and Carlos. A small crowd of hotel staff had gathered too. Housekeepers, kitchen crew, even a few guests. Everyone had heard about the missing dog. Everyone had heard that Keanu Reeves himself had gone into the forest to find her. And then, he returned. Mud-covered, tired, and smiling gently, Keanu emerged from the woods with Luna in his arms. The crowd gasped. Ellie screamed with joy and ran to him. Luna. Keanu crouched just in time, placing the trembling pup in Ellie's arms. The dog immediately began licking her face, tail wagging like mad. Ellie held her tightly, tears pouring down her cheeks. "You found her. You really found her." Keanu nodded, smiling softly. "She's a brave little explorer." Ellie looked up at him with reverence. "You're a hero." He chuckled, brushing mud off his sleeve. "Just a guy who didn't want you to lose your best friend." The staff clapped. A few even wiped away tears. Guests pulled out phones, but somehow no one had the heart to film the moment. It felt too sacred, too human. Emma approached, shaking her head in awe. "Of all the people I thought would be the one to run into the woods for a lost dog." Keanu shrugged. "She needed help. That's all." "You realize this is going to be in every staff story for the next 20 years, right?" He smiled. "I've had worse legacies." Later that evening, Keanu sat quietly in the back garden, sipping hot tea. The sunset bathed the sky in gold again. Marcus joined him, taking a seat beside him with a grunt. "So now you're a plumber and a dog rescuer," he joked. Keanu chuckled. "Can't say I planned it." Marcus grew quiet for a moment. "You know, people talk about fame like it's a superpower, but I think kindness is the real magic. And you've got plenty of that." Keanu stared into the horizon, thoughtful. "I've lost a lot of people, Marcus. Friends, family. Sometimes it makes you want to do everything you can to keep others from feeling that kind of loss." The older man nodded slowly. "Then you're doing it right." But the story wasn't over. Not even close, because that act, quiet, kind, selfless, was caught by the hotel's internal cameras. And someone in the security office, overwhelmed by the beauty of what they saw, posted a short clip of Keanu carrying Luna back through the trees. It went viral overnight. By morning, the world would know what KeanuReeves had done. But for Keanu, the real story wasn't about fame. It was about a little girl who got her best friend back. And that, to him, was worth everything. The girl with the grief no one saw. The morning after the dog rescue, the Ridgeway Grand Hotel was a different place. The staff buzzed with an energy they hadn't felt in years. There was laughter in the kitchen, friendly nods between departments that rarely spoke, and a strange sense of pride that ran through the halls, not because a celebrity was staying with them, but because that celebrity had shown them something deeply human. At the center of it all was Ellie, the little girl whose dog had been rescued by KeanuReeves himself. She had been smiling since the moment she got Luna back. Her cheeks hurt from it. She couldn't stop talking about Keanu to anyone who would listen, and Luna had become a little golden blur around the lobby, receiving head pats, belly rubs, and the occasional sneaked sausage from the kitchen. But as Emma watched Ellie from behind the reception desk, she noticed something odd. Ellie was always alone. No mother came to brush her hair. No father came to tie her shoes. No one held her hand when she crossed the marble floor. There was just silence around her, even in her joy. That afternoon, curiosity finally got the better of Emma. She approached Carlos, who had access to guest records. "Do we know who Ellie's here with?" she asked in a whisper. Carlos scrolled through his tablet. "Room 408, booked under a Ms. Joanna Fields. I remember checking her in. She said she needed some rest and quiet. She looked tired, like bone-deep tired." Emma frowned. "I haven't seen her with Ellie once." Carlos shrugged. "Might be sleeping. You want me to go check?" Emma hesitated. "No, I will." Room 408. Emma knocked gently. "Hello, housekeeping." A long pause. Then, the door creaked open an inch. A woman peeked through. Her eyes were swollen from sleep, or maybe crying. "Yes?" she asked. "Sorry to bother you." I'm Emma, from the front desk. I just wanted to check in. Your daughter's been spending a lot of time alone. And the woman interrupted, gently but firmly. Ellie's not my daughter. Emma blinked. Oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed. The woman sighed and opened the door wider. Inside, the room was dimly lit. There was a stack of medical paperwork on the table, a small suitcase, half unpacked, and on the nightstand, a photo of a young woman holding baby Ellie, next to a man with warm eyes and kind hands. She's my niece, the woman said. My sister, Ellie's mom, passed away 6 months ago. Car accident. The father, he's not in the picture. Emma's heart dropped. I'm so sorry. The woman nodded. We came here because Ellie used to come to this hotel every year with her mom. It was their tradition. I thought maybe bringing her here would help her feel connected again, but I've been so tired, grieving. And she's stronger than I am. Emma reached for the woman's hand. You don't have to do this alone. The woman's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to raise a child. I'm scared every day that I'll fail her. Emma smiled gently. She's already loved. That's more than most kids get. Later that evening, Keanu was sitting in the hotel's garden again, sipping his usual cup of tea when Emma approached. She sat beside him and told him everything. About Ellie, about her parents, about the aunt who was trying but crumbling quietly inside. Keanu listened silently, eyes never leaving the horizon. When Emma finished, he set his cup down. Do you know why I was really here? He asked. Emma shook her head. He exhaled deeply. This hotel, this was the last place I stayed with my fiancé. Before the cancer came back, we spent one perfect week here, watching snowfall and drinking hot chocolate at 2 a.m. Emma's eyes filled. She died 2 months later, he continued. And for years, I couldn't come back. I couldn't face it. But something changed this year. I woke up and thought, maybe I'm ready to remember without pain. Emma was quiet, stunned by the intimacy of his words. You see, he said gently, grief doesn't go away. But neither does love. And that little girl, she's already holding on to both. The spark that lit the hotel. The next day, something beautiful began to happen. It started with Marcus, who took Ellie to the rooftop greenhouse and showed her how to water the tomato plants. Then Carlos gave her a tour of the behind-the-scenes areas of the hotel, the laundry chute, the staff cafeteria, even the security room. She laughed for the first time that didn't sound like she was forcing herself to. The pastry chef made her a dog-shaped cookie. The head of housekeeping let her help fold napkins for the fancy restaurant. And Keanu. He took her for a walk in the woods with Luna. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. He taught her how to skip stones. She taught him how to braid hair using flower stems. It became something more than just a vacation. It became a healing ground for Ellie, for her aunt, for the staff, for Keanu himself. Then the world found out. By now, the video of Keanu rescuing Luna had hit 4 million views. News outlets were calling. Talk shows were asking for interviews. Paparazzi started circling. But Keanu refused them all. He asked the hotel to put out a single statement. I'm just a guest who wanted to help. Let's keep the spotlight where it belongs, on kindness. But Emma knew something was coming. The energy was shifting. Because Keanu wasn't just helping. He was planning something. Something big. Something unforgettable. And it all started with a quiet phone call he made behind the front desk. The call that changed everything. The hotel was beginning to glow. Not from its chandeliers or polished marble floors, but from something invisible, something that shimmered in every hallway and touched every heart. The guests were happier. The staff were warmer. And Ellie, she smiled like a child who believed again. But KeanuReeves hadn't come all this way just to rescue a dog, skip stones with a grieving girl, and sip tea beneath mountain skies. He had been watching, quietly, Not in a celebrity sort of way, but in the way someone does when they're looking for something to make right. And now, he had found it. The phone call. Late one evening, after most of the guests had turned in and the halls were quiet, Keanu stood alone at the front desk. Carlos had gone to refill the coffee machine. Emma was in the back organizing schedules, so no one noticed when Keanu picked up the lobby phone and dialed a number from memory. It rang only twice. "Martin, it's me. I need a favor and a jet." On the other end was Martin Delgado, one of Keanu's closest friends, a private philanthropist who ran several charity initiatives focused on housing, education, and youth wellness. Keanu didn't ask for favors often, but when he did, he meant it. "There's a girl," Keanu said, "and a hotel, and a future that's about to disappear if someone doesn't step in." The quiet preparations. The next morning, the hotel staff noticed something strange. Carlos received a delivery of brand new uniforms for the staff, high-end, tailored, and wrapped in silk sleeves. Marcus was asked to clear the rooftop garden completely, without explanation. The pastry chef was given a strange request: make a cake that says, "To new beginnings, but don't ask questions." And Emma, she received a note at her desk, handwritten, with a flower tucked inside. "Please have Ellie and her aunt meet me in the Rosewood Lounge at 7:00 p.m. No formal attire required. Just hearts open. K.R." The Rosewood Lounge, 7:00 p.m. The Rosewood Lounge was normally reserved for elite guests and high-profile events. But tonight, it was empty, except for a small table, a bouquet of wildflowers, and a projection screen rolled down like a curtain hiding something extraordinary. Emma led Ellie and her aunt, Jonah, into the room. Keanu stood by the window, dressed as always, simple, grounded, but his eyes sparkled with something Emma hadn't seen before: hope. Jonah was nervous. "Mr. Reeves, we weren't expecting." "Just Keanu, please," he smiled. He nodded toward the seats. "I want to show you both something." The lights dimmed. The projector came to life. And then, on the screen, a house appeared. A beautiful two-story cottage. Warm, earthy, nestled in a small Colorado town. A garden in the front. A fenced yard. A dog door already installed. Jonah's brows furrowed. "What is this?" Keanu turned to Ellie. "Do you remember telling me you wanted a place where Luna could run free?" Ellie nodded slowly. "And you, Jonah," Keanu continued gently, "told Emma you didn't think you were capable of raising a child." Jonah's lips trembled. I don't know if I am." "That's okay," Keanu said. "Most good people feel that way. But I believe in you, and I believe Ellie deserves a safe space to grow." He paused. "That house is yours." Jonah blinked. "What?" "I bought it yesterday. It's fully paid for. The deed will be in your name by next week. No rent, no mortgage, just a fresh start." Silence fell. Jonah gasped. Ellie turned to her, eyes wide. "Aunt Jo, we have a home." Keanu knelt beside the girl. "A real one, with space for both of you, close to schools, and I've arranged for grief counseling, educational support, and even vet care for Luna. All covered." Jonah was speechless. Her eyes welled with tears. "Why would you do this?" she whispered. Keanu's voice softened. "Because when I lost my family, no one could give them back. But someone gave me a second chance, a quiet place to heal. Now I want to do the same." Jonah cried openly now. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't ashamed. She was seen. And that was everything. The ripple effect. What no one expected was how this act would ripple. The next day, the hotel staff gathered in the lobby as Emma read aloud a letter Keanu had left for them all. To the staff of Ridgeway Grand. "You reminded me that healing happens in the smallest of gestures, that real luxury is not chandeliers, but compassion. Please accept the following gift, a bonus equal to 1 month's salary for every staff member. and a donation of $250,000 made in the hotel's name to the local Children's Grief Support Center. Thank you for reminding me what it means to be human. Gasps, tears, applause. Marcus took off his cap and held it to his chest. Carlos dropped his clipboard. Emma cried without trying to hide it. Keanu had already left the building, just as quietly as he had arrived. But the story didn't end there. News of Keanu's actions spread like wildfire, not from press releases, but from the hearts of those who experienced it. A housekeeper wrote a blog post about his humility. Carlos' nephew made a TikTok about the moment Keanu handed Ellie a dog whistle and said, "This is for adventures." An anonymous guest who had been in the lobby during Luna's return posted a grainy video captioned, "KeanuReeves just made a little girl believe in magic again. Real heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they wear muddy jeans." In the days that followed, donations poured into the grief center. The Ridgeway Grand was flooded with bookings, not because of its spa, but because of the story. And Ellie? She moved into her new home 2 weeks later. She decorated her room with drawings of Luna, wildflowers, and one sketch she made herself of Keanu holding her dog, smiling gently, with the words, "My hero who didn't need to be." The return no one expected. 3 months had passed since Keanu Reeves walked out of the Ridgeway Grand Hotel with muddy shoes, a quiet smile, and a little girl's future in his hands. The world had moved on, as it always does, but not for the people inside that hotel. For them, Keanu's presence lingered, not like a shadow, but like sunlight warming the place long after dawn had passed. His visit had sparked more than media buzz. It had ignited a movement, a quiet revolution of kindness. The hotel had changed. Emma stood at the front desk, now promoted to guest experience manager. She wore a sleek navy blue blazer, her name tag polished and proud. But more than that, there was a glow to her now, a confidence built not from authority, but from purpose. Carlos was running the Staff Appreciation Program, a monthly initiative where workers shared stories of kindness between guests and staff. Marcus was semi-retired, finally taking every other Friday off for fishing trips. But he still came around to tinker with boilers and pass along wisdom. And the hotel had started a new tradition called the Room of Hope, a free suite, always open to families in crisis. No charge, no questions, inspired by a man who never asked for attention. Then came the day. It was a cool October afternoon when a familiar name popped up in the system. KeanuReeves. No alias this time. No assistant. Just one room booked under his real name. Room 407. Not the penthouse. Not the corner suite. Just a simple room with a view of the garden. Emma's hands trembled on the keyboard. She picked up the lobby phone and called Carlos. "He's coming back." Carlos paused. "Are you sure it's him?" Emma looked at the screen, heart pounding. "He booked the same room as last time." Carlos exhaled. "Then we better get ready." But not in the way you think. They didn't roll out a red carpet. They didn't arrange for media. They didn't even tell the newer staff who he was, because this wasn't about spectacle. It was about gratitude. And the staff had been preparing something, quietly, for weeks. They had hoped he might return someday, hoped they could say thank you in a way that words couldn't reach. The arrival. Keanu stepped into the lobby just as the autumn sun hit the mountain ridges. He wore a dark flannel shirt, denim jacket, and his usual boots. He looked weathered, but peaceful, like a man who had finally found stillness after years of carrying storms. Emma greeted him first. "Welcome back," she said softly. Keanu smiled. "Good to see you, Emma." She handed him a room key, old school brass, not a key card. "We saved this for you," she said. Carlos emerged from behind the front desk, holding a cup of the exact tea Keanu had always ordered. Marcus walked over from the service hall, shook his hand, and said, "Still owe me an afternoon of pipe work, you know." Keanu chuckled. "I came prepared." The real surprise. That night, Keanu received an invitation slipped under his door. No envelope, just a handwritten note. Please join us in the Rosewood Lounge at 8 p.m. There's something we'd like you to see. With love, RGH family. Keanu hesitated. He didn't like attention. Never had. But something in the handwriting told him this was different. The Rosewood Lounge. Again. He walked in quietly. But what he found made him stop in his tracks. The lounge had been transformed, not into something grand, but something intimate and powerful. A projector screen stood in front of the same table from months ago. On it, the words, "What you left behind." And then it began. A slideshow. Images of Ellie in her new home, planting flowers, riding a bike, painting a mural of Luna. Clips of her first day at school, her hugging Joanna at the front door, a birthday party with balloons, and neighbors and laughter. And then a short video clip. Ellie sat in her new bedroom, holding a teddy bear. Luna sat beside her, tail wagging. "Hi, Keanu. It's me, Ellie. I'm okay now. I'm happy. I still miss my mom, but I think she'd be smiling if she could see us now. Aunt Jo is doing so good. I think she's less scared now. And Luna doesn't run away anymore. She stays. I hope you come back one day. I want to show you my treehouse. Thank you for giving us a home when we had nothing but memories." The screen faded to black. Silence filled the room. Keanu wiped at his eyes slowly. Then, behind him, the staff began to emerge. One by one. Emma, Carlos, Marcus, housekeepers, bellboys, the pastry chef, all dressed in their uniforms. Each held a single candle, each candle symbolizing one act of kindness done in the months since Keanu had left. One candle for a guest whose husband had passed away and needed a shoulder. One candle for a staff member struggling with rent who was gifted a week's groceries. One candle for a child guest with autism, given a quiet space to find peace. All inspired by what Keanu had shown them. When all the candles were lit, Emma spoke. "You came here to find peace, Keanu. But in doing so, you gave it to all of us. You reminded us that kindness isn't just a job, it's a choice, every day." Keanu didn't speak for a long time. Then he simply said, "This means more to me than you'll ever know." The final moment. As he turned to leave, Marcus handed him an envelope. Inside was a photo. It was a group picture, Ellie, Jonah, the hotel staff, and Luna, taken in front of Ellie's new home. On the back, Ellie had written in messy, childlike handwriting, "You didn't just save my dog, you saved me." That night, Keanu walked the hotel grounds alone. The stars were out, the breeze cool against his face. He stopped by the reflecting pond, stood there for a long time, then whispered to no one in particular, "I think I'm finally home." The legacy room. Morning came softly at the Ridgeway Grand. Sunlight dripped through the tall windows like gold pouring from the sky. The staff moved quietly, as though afraid to break the spell of the night before. In the Rosewood Lounge, the candles from the tribute still flickered gently, their flames thin and dancing in the morning breeze. The photo of Ellie with her new family and hotel staff now sat in a frame near the grand piano, a memory turned into a monument. And Keanu Reeves. He was still in room 407. But today, he wasn't packing to leave. He was planning to stay just a little longer. Not because he had to, but because he needed to. The conversation that sparked a future. Down in the breakfast lounge, Keanu sat with Emma, Carlos, and Marcus, the people who had unknowingly changed his life just as much as he had changed theirs. "You know," Keanu said, sipping tea, "I've spent my entire career going from hotel to hotel, city to city, face to face, always searching." "Searching for what?" Emma asked. He paused. "Something real." Carlos leaned forward. "And did you find it here?" Keanu looked around. At the staff, the walls, the view of the mountain. at the quiet comfort of people who saw each other clearly. I think I did. Marcus raised an eyebrow. So what happens next? Reeves? You move in. Take over the boiler room permanently. Keanu laughed. Not quite. But I do have a question for you all. He leaned in. What would you think if I bought this hotel? The room fell silent. Emma's mug froze halfway to her lips. Carlos dropped his butter knife with a clink. Marcus blinked like he wasn't sure he'd heard right. Keanu smiled, almost shyly. I'm serious. I don't want to change it. I don't want to turn it into a franchise. I want to preserve it. Protect it. Maybe expand the Room of Hope concept. Make it national. Maybe even global. Emma's eyes filled with tears. You want to own the Ridgeway Grand. No, Keanu corrected gently. I want to steward it. With you. With everyone who's made it what it is. I don't want to be the boss. I want to be part of the story. Marcus let out a slow, low whistle. Well, I'll be. Carlos clapped his hands together. This is gonna be big. Keanu smiled, leaning back in his chair. Only if we do it together. And so, it began. The process took 6 months. Legal teams, paperwork, negotiations with the previous ownership group, who, upon hearing why Keanu wanted the hotel, agreed without even asking for full market value. He didn't rename it, didn't slap his name on the wall. Instead, he added one new suite. Suite 404. It was previously a storage space, small, unremarkable. But with Keanu's help and vision, it was transformed into something breathtaking. A place called the Legacy Room. It wasn't for celebrities. It wasn't even available for booking. It was for people like Ellie. Inside the Legacy Room. The Legacy Room was a sanctuary. One wall was lined with framed letters from guests and staff whose lives had been changed by kindness, some anonymous, others signed with tear-stained ink. There was a soft velvet bench beside a low window that overlooked the forest, the very one where Luna had once gone missing. A single shelf held 3 items. A dog whistle with a red ribbon tied around it. A drawing from Ellie of Keanu, Luna, and a heart between them. A wrench, old, rusted, with a tag, to fix what no one else sees. On the side table was a guest book, not for signatures, but for stories. Anyone who stayed at the Ridgeway Grand and had experienced a moment of healing could leave their words there. One entry read, I came here after losing my son. I couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe. But someone left tea outside my door. No note, just warmth. I didn't think I mattered anymore. Until I stayed here. Another. My divorce nearly broke me. The receptionist, Carlos, gave me a smile and directions to a hiking trail. He said, the mountain doesn't care what you've lost. It just wants you to breathe. I did. I came back the next year. And I'm still breathing. The Legacy Room became sacred. A secret whispered through grief groups. A miracle space booked in whispers between therapists and pastors and people who believed in second chances. Ellie's return. A year to the day after Keanu's first stay, a young girl burst through the lobby doors with a golden retriever on a leash. Luna, she yelled. Wait. The dog skidded across the marble, tail wagging. Emma, now general manager, laughed from behind the desk. Look who's back. Ellie smiled, her eyes brighter. We came to visit. Joanna walked in behind her, her posture taller, her hands confident. We're visiting friends. Keanu appeared from the elevator just then, a soft smile on his face. Ellie ran to him and hugged his waist tightly. I missed this place, she said. It's magic. Keanu knelt and whispered in her ear. It's magic because of people like you. The ending that isn't an ending. Years later, the Ridgeway Grand became known around the world. Not because of luxury, not because of celebrities, but because of something much rarer. Kindness made permanent. Guests didn't come just to vacation. They came to heal, to reconnect, to remember what mattered. And it all started with one man, mistaken for a regular guest. A man who didn't need attention, just purpose. Final words from the guest book in the legacy room. To the man who walked in with muddy boots and left behind a movement. You reminded us that being ordinary is the most extraordinary thing a person can be when done with love. Asterisk.